Okay, I guess we should look at the agenda, which is somewhat light, I guess. There are other things going on, but um, just the update on the development. We just released 6.3 last month. So that was a major focus for most of the fall, I would say, to finally get that thing out. It always takes way longer than it should somehow. I don't know. Maybe we just keep adding features and don't want to stop. I don't know. But there was a lot of bug fixes leading up to 6.3. So that sort of took, those were important to do. And you can't control that. So that's good. So I think it's a pretty solid release. The stuff on the agenda, do you want to say anything more about that, Megan?
No, I have nothing to add for the 6.3 release. So I'm glad we got it out. That's about it.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, it's good to get that going. And it's a little too early to start thinking about 6.4 or something like that yet, but it will be in 2022 for sure, at some point, unless we discover some very bad things, but we haven't quite yet, I think. The DCW, the Digital Chart of the World, which is this very old but polygonal data file for countries and sometimes states within, I think, 8 the largest countries. It has been worked on a little bit, especially Federico has done a lot of work on that one, fixing long-standing issues in it. Like it came to us from the GIS world, so of course nothing can cross 180 without being broken into pieces, all that jazz. So he found a couple of islands and chunks that were split. So we've glued them back together the way God intended it. And then there is, so that we're going to have, actually we released yesterday a 2.0.2 version of DCW, which is just minor fixes that is available for everybody. We don't have a great mechanism to notify people that this has happened. There's no auto, well, I should say this, there's several ways you can get the DCW. You can download it and install it with GMT. If you're on a Linux system, it might be a dependency of GMT and you sort of get it there. And in which case, you may get updates when they update DCW, right? With your regular Linux updates. People who just don't install coastlines at all, they will get them on automatically from our server when they request it the first time. But after that, there's no checking further. So if we update on the server, they don't get a new version. So you don't have any sort of versioning thing on DCW like we have for the other data sets that are remote. So it's a little bit different there. So right now, I'm sure hardly anyone will download 2.0.2 except new installers, right? They will get it. So I'm not sure how we're going to solve or fix that problem. And any thoughts on that point? How do we let people know there's a new version? How should GMT tell you that? Or should GMT tell you that? Because we could check, but we have to build it in, right?
So from my point of view, that wouldn't be necessary. I will take a look, I think, all few weeks if there's some new version. So I do that automatically. So no problem for me. So same with the shoreline database or something like that. So I will take a look every few weeks or months in order to see. Another thing, what I think, which might be interesting, I've seen that in some regions. What do you think about improvements to the DCW? If there's, I've seen, for example, I'm using, last time someone recommended a GADM. I tried that, I compared that with my region to a DCW, to my local geological data, coast data, and to some soil data I got. And none of these really fit. So with some lowlands, islands or some areas of about 5-6 kilometers, they nearly don't overlap. So they show completely different areas at the same place. So they mark different areas. So if I take something like SRTM in combination with that, none of these does fit with the SRTM levels. So that's quite difficult.
You can see us smiling and laughing a little bit here because this is an old issue, and we have a plan. It's not on agenda, but yes, we looked at GADM, we looked at OpenStreetMap. There's comparisons The answer there is that OpenStreetMap is by far the best quality, but of course there's an enormous job of stitching into polygons from that. GADM is better than what we have for sure, but we are going to work on this issue, but that's sort of separate. So until we start that process, we're just doing band-aids on DCW. So, but we agree with you. That's exactly what you said is exactly the truth. and
what I currently do, for example, some rivers, they don't end in the ocean, so they end inland. So if I put that, let's say, one page, everything on one page, I can see 2 or 3 millimeters of this river missing. So it seems it would end somewhere before it's coming to the ocean. So I had to reconstruct some parts of these polygons myself in order to fix that. So that's quite annoying if you have to do that on many places.
Totally. Yeah, I think, you know, most of us involved in doing this early work on things worked on problems on a much larger regional global scale. We never noticed these kind of things. So we did notice them, but it didn't bother us, right? When you zoom into a smaller area, suddenly all these ugly things showing up. And we've gotten emails last decades of, you know, this island doesn't do this, or we're missing a little piece here and stuff. So yeah, so it's showing its age, the whole data set, and we know we need to update it.
I also see that if I'm taking OpenStreetMap, it also doesn't fit with the SRTM data because this data is also a few years old. So, with islands, for example, at the Netherlands or German coast, you see that they are moving from west to east over decades. So about 100 meters within about 10 or 20 years. So if you take data like DCW from the 70s or 80s, you see that lie west of the real island. And if you take OpenStreetMap, these polygons lie east of that island. Yes, and the SRTM data are in the middle of that. So best would be to have some vector data from that date referring to the raster data, to the SRTM, to the digital elevation model from that age.
Right.
That would be quite nice.
That'd be ideal. But I think that's an extra level of complexity beyond just getting the current best data we can possibly get into GMT, which will, you know, fix 99% of the problem or more. But yeah, I realize that changing landscapes, and I think it's a whole other different level of complexity that probably you would have to solve on a local level, getting, you know, data, historical data from.
I've just pasted the area which I'm currently working into the chat so that you can see what I'm talking about. I also saw with the DCW until the day before yesterday that some of the boundaries, they don't fix even on main Europe. So I just took segment 15 from the Netherlands and put it to Germany, because it was a decision of the CIA in the 70s or 80s in order to get some reparation from World War II and put that in the Netherlands, but it was never done. So they, in their data sets, they put it into the Netherlands data set. So segment 50 should be part of Germany, because the marine boundary is correct, but the island is marked on the wrong side of the boundary.
Okay, well, that's probably something we are capable of fixing. You can.
That was just something that was easy to fix.
Yeah. Okay.
Klaus-Peter, do you mind if I put these in the notes so we have them for after the Zoom meeting? Everything gets deleted at the end, so.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. Well, I'll do that.
It gets recorded, I guess, but we don't keep it the chat text.
Of course.
Yeah. But, great. Yeah, that'd be good.
A couple of things on these. I do not know the origin of the DCW. It's from Esri, I think. The digital chart of the world is from Esri. Maybe it has the same origin, long origin of the CIA digitalization, but they are really two separate data sets and formats. And whilst the DCW is relatively easily to adapt, the GSHH, the other one, it's an R. I'm not even sure that Paul can even him modify it again, because it relied on GMT4. It's awfully complicated. People have no idea how complicated that is. So for me, it's completely out of question, almost any change by now. DCW is a bit of the same thing. It isn't very good. None is very good. The only very good coastlines is the ones provided by the countries, for the countries that provide them. Those are the only ones that are good. For example, I have the version that is in Windows installer comes with the Portuguese coastline, which is very good. It was from the time that I was also able to modify it. I'm not anymore. So, and I only did that for the mainland, not the islands. So it's simply something that we cannot work at. We cannot even try to solve. And we are resistant to even to small changes because, well, Federico is a newcomer for this. He started with one, with Rush, he started another island, and all of a sudden, and we knew the story from the beginning when I saw the first one. Federico, you are going to the rabbit hole because there is always the next one, and there are many things that are not right. We know that. I don't know if we must have somewhere a splash screen saying that, but it's really nothing that we can fix. And it's terrible because if you start fixing one, there is the other one next to it waving, and we do not stop. Really, for these type of things, and not going to the question of the places where the coastlines are dynamically changing very fast, even for the statics. And well, I know about the rivers. The Douro River does not reach and I did not fix it because I only fixed the coastlines. I know it looks ugly. But and there are many in Africa. The rivers are even worse than the rest of the thing. But really here, when people want high quality coastlines, I think there is only one possible source of that is their national or international, or we pick it somewhere, authorities that publish coastlines. That's the only ones that are good. For example, the the CIA is not that wrong as we say. The problem is that it has a different datum. That's the main difference. If we made the shift of in many cases is about 300 meters northeast or northwest or something, it fits still very well to the coastlines. But because of the datums, it is out of place when we make the maps. But okay, no need to talk much more about this. Is high precision coastlines. People that want them. This is a completely exterior issue to GMT. And by the way, probably it was me who suggested looking at GADM because a lot it's a bit better than the others. But if even it is not that good, and OpenStreetMap, there is another thing. It does not have the countries. You have the streets, you have the coastline, but it does not have the polygons of the countries. We cannot rebuild DCW from OpenStreetMap data. I don't know any other. Oh, there are other sources of country polygons, and Paul made that comparison with Sardinia or something like that, with 3 or 4. Yeah. And when we go to the same, probably the less working one is the GIDM. I don't know. You had another one was a bit better. I don't know. Oh, the lakes, but the lakes are on OpenStreetMap.
Well, they might be, but it's hard to get them out of it. But yeah, they are.
Yes.
They are.
I mean, with work you can extract them, but we cannot extract the polygons from the country.
That's true. Yeah, no, I know it's a
very my old dream for all the times when I might have tried to go deep on that was to not have any polygons of the country, just have the borders, and inventing something that would allow us to rebuild the polygons, because it shocked me that duplication, and it's not only duplication. If you correct one side, you have to correct on the other one.
Yeah. So
ideally for me, it's sometimes I still do search to see if someone has come up with a good program or algorithm to do that. I think we don't need to have polygons of the countries. You only need to have the borders and a way of to describe what are the the order by which you need to connect them to make a,
Sure.
a
Yep.
Only features that I've actually required polygons for are lakes. Every other aspect of GSHHG, I've always been satisfied with plotting them as points or lines, which could be separate. So if we didn't need to do polygons for a lot of the features, that would really simplify extracting some of the OSM data, right?
Yeah, now Joachim is right that there's no one data set where they keep these information together. So we end up with DCH, DCW, and GSHH, and they're different for many different reasons. And they don't overlap, they don't have the same data. And if we do GADM and OpenStreetMap, we have exactly the same issue, that they don't share the same data, and we will have two different data sets that on close inspection will differ, right? But not on the regional inspection, we'll be fine, just like the current situation. So yeah, so this took longer than I expected, but yes, the whole issue of coastline quality and stuff is a very long-lived issue, and that has no simple solution unless someone has $1 million to hire a bunch of people to do this for some time to really to create this data that doesn't exist, basically.
And by the way, do any of us know any other software that has coastlines? I mean, or something comparable? That they all use what's available. I think they all do what GMT does, and many of them, they even use the GSHH coastlines.
Yeah, some of them do. I mean, Google clearly has something good, but that's not available to us, right? It's just that simple. Whatever they have.
It was not that good when a couple of years ago I checked it. Well, that's my impression, but might have changed. I have not looked recently.
Yeah.
Okay. Since DCW is what we have, I don't see any reason to not work on it since Federico's contributing so much. So I would suggest we might go over some of the questions that he had in the forum post. If you have any that you'd want to get feedback on now, Federico, we could do that.
Yeah, let me go back to the forum post.
Yes,
go ahead.
I think you have read the forum, so maybe the main question there are how many amounts of records which we should have now that it will be work, but how many records we want the file.
Sorry, your video cut up. I couldn't really hear.
I think he's asking the first question, right? How many?
Yes, the first question.
How many do we want to distribute in terms of official GMT blessed collection kind of things? And I guess the nice thing of sticking to just the official is that it's a clear list in a sense, and then people can add. Since people can add their own collections, we have a way of extending it for the users. But I guess the other issues are we named continents and other large areas that probably we should include. That's where it's a slippery list, right? We don't know where to draw the line. I don't know. We're going to get emails from people saying, "Why didn't you include X?" Whatever X is.
Add it for the next version.
Yes, that's true. So in that sense, this is not a large list. We're not talking thousands of things here. We're talking 100 on that ballpark. Yeah, hundreds maybe. And frankly, it doesn't bother me that list is 200. If it were to be 200, if that helped anyone, I think most people will only do this in their neck of the woods, right? They're going to use maps of where they are, and they will use those things, and they're not going to care about something on the other side of the planet have 5 different names for different seas. So I don't want to impose any restriction on what you want to do, because it's these kinds of jobs are self-motivated, so I do not want to stop your motivation to put in what you think should go in there, put it that way. So whatever you think is reasonable, you can do, and I think everybody's happy with that.
Great.
Yes.
And as you said, we can always update it. We can add more things.
Yeah, start with lower numbers. I would say if you have a long list, it's difficult to consult.
Yeah. And also, it's hard to remove things. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that to be conservative, we start with I don't know what is a low number on the easy. I don't know if it's the 200 or not.
50,
but it's not the problem of having a file with 200 lines. Is you type a command that prints lots of names.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you need to go very much too much.
That's a good point, Joachim. It's easier to it's easier to add more lines later at demand versus starting with a long list and then starting to remove things and get people upset. It's always one person that needs that one record, and you can't remove it. So it's better to start small and add, I guess. Always easy to add.
Okay.
But this will be good. This will make it easier for people who think of regions as defined by geography, right?
Okay, great. Well, the second question, if there's any other official list that we want to include. I don't find any other important list, so fine. But what do you think?
No, I think what we have is good start, and if we discover some other official list of things that we should consider, there's always the next version for that. So
I think it's a bit the same issue.
Yeah,
it's a bit the same, partially the same question as the first question, because if you have more lists, you would increase the number of them, otherwise they're equal. There's a bit of the same of the first question.
Yeah.
I know I know I know the names that are around. Of course, I know the names in Europe. I know the names in Americas. I don't know much more of that, of those common names in geography. And I consider I have a reasonable good of world geography. Of course, I don't know the Asian names. They are local names. I do not know them. We know the names that Europeans gave when they went there, but probably I don't know how much they are used by the people there. That risk to open the door. People want to have their local names with the other fonts.
Yeah, so you're doing better than me. I think I couldn't even define what the Midwest is in the United States where I live. So you're global in your sense.
Yeah. No, I guess, since we have the ability, we'll have the ability for people to have their own little collection list with their favorite names and regions and so on in their .gmt directory. We should only provide really official, larger things there and let people do smaller things in their neck of the wood the way they want, and they can just give them their own names, right? My region, and they just say what that is in terms of the building blocks or -R. So I think when in doubt, Federico, don't include something. Just include stuff that you think is really, on the same level as the others. So sort of official lists, UN lists, that sort of thing. I think that's a good enough. And then the documentation will explain how you can add your own little things, and then everybody's happy. No one needs it to be part of the official collection, right? They're happy with a solution that lets them do that separately, I think.
Okay.
And I will see what people say. Maybe we hear nothing back. You don't have to do anything.
They will be able to use the same names that the official list.
Same names as the official list.
Someone uses. Yes. Someone is in its.
Sorry, little delays. Okay, Federico first, and then Joachim.
No, is someone in her local list puts a name, the same name of the official list. What will happen?
Well, I think we parse the official list first, and then if you want to override that with your own thing, I think that would be parsed second. We can make it that way. I'm not sure right now you probably end up with 2 copies and it will just find the first one. So I might have to change the code a little bit there to check for that case. We don't really want to have 2 entities with different regions and somehow not know about that. But I think it seems to me that if you wanted to redefine what you mean by the Mediterranean, you should be allowed to do that in your own file, and it should override the GMT setting, right? That's how we do other things. You know, the user trumps the defaults. So that seems reasonable, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing. So, but that I will have to make the code change for this. And Joachim.
Now here is what I was about to start is where I have doubts about the situation of those more, at least 2 now how are the continents defined? Still by countries or by polygons? Because we have that question of the Americas, the Greenland, Africa. Are they defined by names or by bounding boxes?
Initially, the mechanism we currently have in master, now we say equal AF for Africa, that is a shorthand for the collection of all the DCW polygons that belong to Africa in that data set.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, we had this, and we had this discussion about, you know, Americas with Greenland and the Denmark people will be upset and all that stuff. So there's these odd definitions of countries, I think. But I think we resolved this, Federico, that we will stick with the same country list that we had before. We're just going to allow Africa to be an argument, and then we'll get the Africa countries, right? And not the UN that includes other things.
I was thinking to include the bounding box of Africa, and use UN Africa for the list of country of UN. So
the list of countries,
yes.
You mean would have 2 Africas?
UN Africa and Africa, just Africa. And just Africa would be the bounding box.
Right, so UN Africa
Africa is still, okay, we can discuss Africa, but for example, Europe, we cannot have that Europe that goes through to the entire Asia.
Okay, that will be UN,
because it's I think it's
Europe.
the same problem. Yeah, because it's all the continents. Africa, I think we should. If I make a map of Africa, I don't want to see all of that empty space just because that Kerguelen, which happens to be French, is associated to Africa. I don't know for what reason, and a couple of islands that I don't know. One is a French island, Ilha de Réunion. And that, but the problem is, okay, for example, I don't have the same question with Cabo Verde on the west side. Well, culturally, Cabo Verde is Africa. For me, culturally, Réunion is not Africa. It's an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and it happens. But it's not the main point. The point is, I don't know if the Réunion is the one. Réunion Island is exactly the one who makes it happen, but it extends the polygon to the east quite a bit. And Kerguelen extended to the south. I think, and then you posted the map with the Asia where that thing happened even worse or more complicated. I think for all of those, we should have only one, and it should be bounding boxes, because there is no way we can solve Europe problem. I think it's worse. It's not Greenland. You cannot call Europe. You cannot call Europe something that goes from the Azores to the Bering Strait.
Okay, but if someone wants the list of countries of Africa, of Europe, what maybe
a list of countries, a list of countries of Europe. A list of countries of Europe is a part of Russia and not all. That's how it is. That's why Europe is not a clear definition. That's why we say, okay, let's go to the Urals mountains. It's more or less that, but definitely is not including Asia. That would have everybody would agree that that's not correct. Where it is, well, actually no one knows, because there is no geographical boundary, not a political boundary, but there is an European part of Russia and the Asian part of Russia, and that everybody agrees. So we cannot have that Europe. It's not even the Greenland. The Greenland is also, but comparing to the Europe case, the Greenland is not even.
No, I agree with that.
After all,
yeah.
Yeah, what do the maps of Europe do? Okay, they put a meridian somewhere that cuts close to the Urals, and we do that. And because we are not, either we make 2 Russias, so you can have it the list by per countries, and we have the Russian, European Russian, and the Asian Russia.
We could
also. But then we say one thing. We can say all the continents are defining by a bounding box, and because there are only 5, or I don't know, there were 5 at the time of the school, we can do it manually. It's not that we have to do 100 of them, and then we would disagree. I think simple things would be only one continent is only one region, and because of these difficulties, we do the bounding box manually. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna control the voice here. So hold a second, Klaus Peter. So Federica was.
I finished. Yeah.
Yeah. So Federica can speak now.
No. Okay.
You okay?
Nothing to add.
Yeah, I think it's tricky with the continents, because I agree with Joachim that Europe, the way in my mind, has always been sort of through half Russia, and then we don't have that. Klaus, Peter, do you want to say something?
Yes, it's the same for Turkey. Turkey part is on Europe, the other side is on Asia, so with the Bosporus. So what I've seen in many cartographical works, that they use some kind of boundary boxes, kind of rectangular, and these can overlap. So you can have an overlapping boundary box on Asia, rectangular, overlapping with that of Europe. And then you could see what is inside that boundary box, if it's a completely filled polygon or not, or something like that, if you want the country administrative boundaries. Right. And then you can have the decision what you want to select inside that box. It's the same for the Mediterranean. If you want to see if it's Mediterranean, so part is in Africa, part is in Europe. And if you mark that rectangular or kind of rectangular subset, then you can see which African and European countries are bordering the Mediterranean. So you don't need the coastline or the country line, just a box containing the essential parts. So in some places, as we would, for example, define with the time zones. So sometimes time zones are also having some boxes to the left or the right. Yes, so we could do something comparable for these regions like the continents.
Well, the issue here is that we don't want to be the ones creating these things, because now we have a huge job on our hands. We just want to take the official UN list, which defines these things for us. If those lists are not to our liking, that's sort of a separate thing, right? When list now, if you specify region UN 47, you get whatever the United Nations have determined this entity should consist of. And some people might want exactly that because it's an official convention, what that contains. So I think we want to we don't want to spend too much time creating our own things, because no one will agree exactly on that. So we want to get out of the business of creating new regions and just provide sanctioned ones. And then we run into the issue with the continents, where there clearly are some practical versus definitions, right? There are definitions of North America in Wikipedia, and I guess UN, that includes Greenland for whatever reason. And we don't like it, but what do? We create our own. I would like to get away from us creating things. Yeah.
If we, I was going to say, if we do move from having the regions defined by list of countries to bounding boxes, I think we still need to make sure that the features we have for listing countries and continents work, right? So that someone who uses coast minus E plus L doesn't end up with a broken script that worked in 6.2 with DCW 2.0.1.
Yeah. So we can do this. We can say, the equal continent code is the same as we always have. It's the same. And then if you write minus R Africa, that can be defined now, what we want by that. And I think Federica had a UN-Africa, which is what the UN said.
If you use UN Africa, you get the official list from the UN. But I want to add
official
Africa,
list of countries.
Yeah. Yes, the countries. Yes.
Yeah.
But then I want to add just Africa to have the bounding box of Africa.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's we talk about. Then if we did Europe, that could be a bounding box that goes right through the Urals, for instance, or slightly.
Yes.
You know, we could create that, and then you would get Joachim would get what he expects to be Europe, and anyone who wants to change that are welcome to do so in their own collection. Yeah. Right. I think that's a reasonable solution. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing more might imply, I don't know much imply in terms of work, but those regions should be able to use them also from the global GSSH maps. Why? Because now you can only use them if you plot the polygons of the countries, or the polygons of the. It's used for. It's used only from DCW.
No.
But no,
it's in -R. It's just.
It's in -R. It's in -R, so you can use it from anywhere. Okay.
Yeah. You can use PS Coast the normal way, but just use it for -R. That's. You got to use -E to actually plot those guys.
-E to define the region.
No. -E to plot the DCW polygon. -R to define a region, irrespective of what data sets is being used. So okay. So
I think it's a good good solution. You have the equal continent is what it has been all the times, and if you spell it, or you don't use the equal, then it's the new adapted. In some cases will be the same, others will be slightly different. And we'll have what does equal EU does now? What is equal Europe does now? Europe?
Don't have Russia.
Yeah, Russia, entire Russia.
Entire Russia. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not. Russia is in Asia. Not in.
So it's the list of the countries. So Russia is only one. So yes, it's the entire polygon of Russia.
Yeah. So if you don't break anything backwards there, it's fine. I think this is a reasonable solution. So there will be 3 Europes, some sort. But
yes,
the people who know what they want can get what they want. The clueless masses will type in Europe and get something reasonable. Those who know what they want will find what they want, basically. So that's the GMT spirit. I think you have the flexibility to do any of these things, and you can redefine it. So the note I took here was that I have to make some changes in the code so that there won't be 2 identical tags, and only the last tag will take precedence, right? So the user can override, whatever they want. So this whole thing here is going to require a DCW 2.1.0 update where we add these lists. And the beauty of this is that GMT 6.3 can use this file because there's no changes to the file. It's just an extra data table that 6.3 has no knowledge of, right? So it's no breaking thing. It's going to take 6.3.x or 6.4 to actually use these collections, right? Because that's a code change in GMT. So I don't know, we should release 2.1.0 when it's ready, I think, because most of us are using master, right? We're not using 6.3, we're building from source and we want to use these features. So, but it will be discussed in 6. Whatever the next GMT version is as a new feature. That make sense? Okay. All right. So I think we're good on PC. Yeah.
What will happen if someone calls a region a bounding box and he adds a code, for example, Europe and code from a country? What would be the direction for you would get?
Oh, so you mean a comma-separated list of more than one thing?
Yes.
Yeah. It right now it will just parse each one and grow them on its region as needed. So you can do Africa, Spitsbergen if you want, and you will get, you know, the bounding box for that collection that you make. So that's already doing it. It parses the different comma-separated entities, and if one of them is a collection, you get the region for that collection and so on. So that should all work. We should test this a little bit more after I make this change here, but it seems like it works for me so far. Okay, let's see what's else on the shopping list here. Timeline, new data sets. Okay, so just a little background here. So you all know about the remote data sets, the grids that you can use with the @ symbol, @Earth Relief, and so on. There's a couple of changes here. Sandwell et al. Have released a new version of Earth Relief. In fact, they released two versions. One is an update, and the other one has synthetic data in certain areas where there are young seafloor. So we have information about abyssal hills directions, and they use John Goff's method of sort of giving the right spectral content of what the abyssal hills should look like. So it's filling in little fake topography. And also very small seamounts have been remodeled to have a more realistic shape because they signal get lost in the altimetry. So that data is called SynBath, synthetic bathymetry. And so we're going to have two data sets, one called Earth Relief and one going to be called Earth SynBath, for those who wants to do that. In addition to that, I have created new remote data sets for Sandwell's 3-year gravity, a vertical gravity gradient, the EMG geoid, and two magnetic data sets, the EMAG2, which is at 2 different altitudes, one sea level, one 4 kilometer, and the WD-MAM, which is the World Digital Magnetic Anomaly Map. That's a French collection. So those will be new data sets. I play with them a little bit, and they are working for me if I use the test server. But question is, how do we release these? They don't require any GMT changes. It is just an update on the server, and you'll be getting new data sets. So there's a timeline now. When do we do this? You can do some more testing other than just me, and then we just update the server, and then it just happens. And related to this is the documentation of which data sets is available. So Megan has made a new repo, because this should be independent of GMT, right? If we want to make an update or add a new data set, we don't want to wait for a new GMT release to update the documentation in that part. It's nothing to do with GMT per se, it's just a data set. So we're pulling out the remote data set documentation from GMT and linking to this other repo. Megan, you want to say anything about where that is right now?
The documentation new site for that is up and working. So I don't think there's any restrictions there for when to push it to the server. I think the biggest factor that might influence the timing is that it's going to break probably 100 GMT tests, maybe a dozen or so PyGMT tests. So I might suggest, especially for the PyGMT side, I could check in with the developers there, but my guess would be sometime after December would probably be better than this is usually a pretty busy month for people. So maybe early January would be a good time to deal with all those failing tests and get the feature out there. What do you think?
Yeah, this is related to many things that are interrelated here. We are trying to get all the test PostScript files out of the repo and using this these DCV version control for images, so that we don't have to update these PostScript files every time we change the coastline or we change the remote file, right? So as Megan mentioned, once we use this new data set, and of course, all the test scripts that uses the old data will be slightly different results. So they're going to fail in a good way. If it just fail, but we can't have 100 failures forever. We'll never find real failures. So at some point we need to update those images, and that shouldn't be in the GMT repo as we go forward. So
that is pretty much set up. If I were to get a approval on that to merge it in. I'm sure at this point it's been a while since I first submitted that pull request, so there's probably some merge conflicts in there to resolve. But if it were approved, I think I could likely migrate all the tests within a week. So it's feasible to do that before we push the new data sets out, I think.
Which tests are we talking about that will fail?
The general, of the 1,000 GMT tests, some of them make maps using the remote data sets, right? The Earth relief,
yes,
mostly. And if that changes in subtle ways, you're going to just get dump
yes,
failures.
But you are adding new data sets, not exactly updating the data set.
There's no version control on the data set, so it will just
But I mean,
the
changes that we're talking about is about new data sets.
No, both. There's new data sets and also a revision to existing, because more multi-beam data from the what's it called, that CBEC 3030.
The thing is, if you're going to touch them, the tests maybe do not need to make maps. What are they testing? Why do we make maps out of them? Because the one thing is to do a map with certain abstract grid. Why do we have tests that depend on the data set? Why are we testing figures? Maybe we don't need to have those tests.
Well, it's yes and no. I guess
if you want to test, that you can access the data and make a plot, maybe you can do the test without making the plot.
You're right. So many of these tests comes because a bug was found. We make a test script. We understand what's happening, and then we fix it, and then it lets as a test. Some of them do require a grid to be extracted, but it could be just a dummy grid. It doesn't have to be a data set, right? So I agree with that. So we could try to eliminate as many as we can of that type. The other thing we could do is we could leave the old Earth relief on the data server that we know about and just continue to use that one so we don't get the failures, right? We don't have to delete that.
Which also brings one thing I remember is the new regions. They're going to have some tests, and again, they do not need to make maps because we are not testing the mapping and the projection thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So we do not need to make maps out of them. The tests grow very much and they become slow, and we can no way you can speed up the rasterization need by GoScript. We can only speed up with speeding them up if we reduce the number of figures, which would also they're already in the repo, so no, even if we change, it's still another change on top of that.
I know.
But it would make the tests running faster and all of that. I think we have, and sometimes maybe the figure could be smaller. If the figure, for example, if the figure would be smaller, maybe those tiny changes wouldn't show up. And we are not testing the data set. There are tests for that. Yes, but the others that also produce maps, they put weight on the testing system that we wouldn't need it probably.
So over the last couple of years, I know Dong has been on this thing that we want to make sure the tests aren't too big and add too much data and too stuff in the thing. So we started to be a little more sensitive to that thing. But historically, this wasn't an issue, and then now, of course, it's going to grow beyond.
Because
that's a good point. I agree. I totally agree with you. This is just a job then of going through the 1,000 tests, or at least finding the ones that make images and using the remote data to see if we can replace them, or look at what was the original reason for the script and see if we can do one that doesn't require a remote data set or a map at all. Right? That's what you're saying, basically. But because that needs an extra motivation, perhaps you can leave it when that motivation comes. In this, the case we are talking now, it's when if you have to change it because of something, maybe you could change it to have no plot at all, or a white thing or constant color or something like that.
So currently, Sorry, I currently thought it might be an idea if you would have some kind of modifier for the test. So if you have a 1000 test and you have a modifier to update or not to update, and you would say for about 800, we wouldn't need an update, and for the others, we might need an update so that we could switch to modifier update or not. So you can have two versions of that generated with a modifier for those which an update might be reasonable.
That would duplicate the number of test files.
Well, I mean, it's a good point. And I mean, it's sort of, I see this in the spirit of what Joachim said, that, you know, maybe we need to look at some of these tests and make some decisions about what are we testing and can this be tested more efficiently without, you know, making a map to show the difference or something. Maybe we can, in the spirit of what this problem was, we can solve it differently. It's just, you know, more work to go back and look at it, obviously, but it would maybe save some CPU cycles on this space and might allow us to add more tests without, you know, this taking days to run. I should say that I just got my new Mac and all the tests takes 2 minutes to run on it. So
yeah, but that's why that's why I say that developers should have old machines. I don't want to apply it to myself, but it's something that developers should work on old machines.
That's right.
So
I should not be allowed
to you should not be allowed
I know what you mean.
to update your machines.
I should only be allowed to run on the machine that is at least 8 years behind everybody else, so that I can suffer, you know, 15-minute tests. That'll teach me. Yeah, I know. Now I think we agree on this thing. It's obviously going to be work to look at the tests. You know, maybe we could find a scheme for doing this efficiently, like looking at the remote tests, the remote data sets first, where those tests are calling the remote data sets, and see what was the problem. Because I know for a fact some of them were like PyGMT issues with global grids not working correctly and translating that to a GMT. And yes, indeed, there was a problem. And now we have this script that makes a map that the problem is fixed, but we have this thing as an insurance, right? And it makes a big GMT image. So yeah, I agree with that part. It should be more economical. Okay, so what I hear is that we shouldn't do this on Christmas Eve. We will wait until 2022 to release the new data sets. There will still be lots of plot comparison in GMT, so we'll still do the data version control thing and get those files out of the GMT repo, at least not adding new ones to it. And then at the same time, we should probably simplify some of the scripts to not make so many plots.
Yeah, that process I think would be the most efficient time to look through the scripts while we're migrating some over. Anyways, we can evaluate whether anything can be cut.
Yeah, and you know the culprits are. Yeah,
I mean, you can still release the new ones, the ones that do not have any tests associated. The issue is when the updates. So you can do it in two steps.
Yes, we can.
No problem with the new ones, but just hold on with the updated data set.
Yeah.
Then you would not have problem with this problem. Well, decouple one from the other. Yeah,
we can work on that, and like I said, I can leave the old relief grid up, and we can have it get there somehow, and there won't be any failures. I mean, my main concern is that I don't want to see 120 failures trying to look for new failures, because you just get lost, right? It's the same reason we try to eliminate warnings from the compiler, because you don't see the real problems.
Yeah, yes, yeah. You saw something. There are a lot of them. I just happened to fall in that one. You know, it's a minor thing, but it was a potential bug. I'm talking about the change I made 1 or 2 days ago. No. That K was not initiated.
The K,
the K. And I just but it was by chance that I happened to stop in that line and saw the warning from GCC, and I look at it. Mm-hmm. There are many about variables not being used. And the thing is, there are many. The problem is there are many. So the ones that we should look, they pass unnoticed because they are in the middle of a very long list. Now, because of the competition with the LLVM, GCC became really verbose with the word. It warns about so many things that I cannot understand why it's saying that if you write into a variable that has 256, it can go from -25 to 78. Well, what do I care about the thing? But there are tons of these, and the problem is that they hide the potential important ones.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this before. We need to automate the covariety thingy. We want to, right? We wanted that to happen with a CI.
I don't even want to look at the covariety.
Yeah, it's been a while now.
It would be thousands. It would be thousands.
I know, but it's been very helpful, right? So I know it's going to be a painful, but we probably should do a run and have a look, and then we should try to automate that thing.
They are still there. We don't need to automate anything. We have 200 of them there, or not 200, but around 100 or something. Okay. They're waiting.
Okay, I'll see if I can find some time.
And it's very boring because the system is not so good. You fix one, and then a couple lines below shows the next one. You say, I just fix this program now, and they keep coming with new ones. It's a very boring thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess I should, when I'm bored, these are fun things to do.
Yeah.
So I gotta wait for that. I guess none of you but Megan is part of AGU this fall. Is that right? No one is.
I'm not.
Yeah. We have a lightning talk on PyGMT tomorrow. It's at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Right. So if anyone's attending, they could check that out. I also put the link to our virtual poster in the meeting notes under the first item. So you could click there and check it out if you're interested.
Yeah, that's gonna say if you were at the meeting, then you should check out Megan's poster, but or lightning talk. But since most of us are not at the register, we can't get them see anything.
Well, you can look at the poster from the convenience of your own desk chair.
Yes, I guess we'll do that. Well, good luck with that one. It'll be interesting to hear any feedback you get there.
Yep, and then for EGU, it seems we do have the session scheduled, but we got an email this week that who knows whether it'll be in person or remote. So currently scheduled for hybrid.
Yeah, I just got the same thing for some other people. So Omicron may change things there too, but it's still a long time until April. So it might be going down by that time, but it's not, it's going up right now. So it's crazy things. Let's see. That's really all we had on the list. Any final departing thoughts that we need to bring up now, or should we save them for next year?
It's just
I want to ask. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. We have been talking.
Okay. Just a question. I want to include about the collections. I want to include the tectonic plates, and I wonder if you know the bounding box of the tectonic plates.
Yeah.
You know which one to use? There is one of Peter Bird. There is also another from
that Texas, is very complicated.
It's very many too. I mean, Peter Bird had I don't know how many people.
There's a lot. Tiny plates, nail plates. He has a lot. The one that they're a simpler one. They're less. It has less plates. I
mean, I could ask Dietmar Müller to say, do you guys have the 12 large plates? Do you have those polygons so we can make a box? We could do that.
Probably they have a shapefile with that.
Yeah, sure.
It's not unlikely they have it.
Yeah, but they have shapefiles probably, right? But the philosophical reason here is that unlike Africa and Greenland, these are domain-specific things for people who do plate tectonics and geology and geophysics. So it's sort of no longer generic, right? So it seems more suitable for people to add to their own collection for their own purposes. And I'm one of the ones who probably would like to have that, but I feel uncomfortable putting it into GMT and making it sort of a geophysical plate tectonic special thing. But that's a good collection item for those of us who care. We'll probably want to do that. a good point. Joachim, do you have any?
Okay. Yeah, couple really two things. First one, I posted in the chat. The Julia tests start failing yesterday or before yesterday with this strange error that I post in the chat. Anyone, anything brings? When I look at these at Google, there are lots of people who had that in different programs. So I wonder, we have to test. I wonder if it was something we changed recently in GMT that might have caused that.
Oh boy.
Cannot allocate memory in static TLS. The recipe that we'll have to try to see if it works is something people say something like that. You have to define or export a variable called LD preload that pointing. No, it says that when it tries to open the GMT lib, the shared lib. So apparently there might be a solution. I don't know how to implement it in the tests, that if you export an LD preload variable pointing to the GMT library, it might work. I don't know. We work it from other places, several of them on Python projects, but it might have been something that we introduced recently. Because, for example, if I try to, this is the Julia test run on the Ubuntu 20.04. If I try to run it in 18, I don't have this error. I have others because of the beautiful dependency things on Unix. Nothing is compatible, so I cannot run it. But I don't have that test. So it's something that from one side related to the Linux version, but it used to work. It was up to 2 days ago or something. Now the tests fail when they start to load GMT, and GMT installs, because the Julia test install GMT every time. I could try to install the efficient versions, but I also like to run it on master version. So I'm always testing things, like maybe it was the case now. So yes, it doesn't ring any bell for you, but
no. I mean, in terms of memory management, something like that, there has been no changes in GMT that would be sort of
I don't even know what is a static TLS block.
No, I know it's a weird message.
It's some Linux message saying that you cannot install in the block.
I think it's more, it's certainly not. I'm very sure it's not a GMT thing. It seems more like an operating system or management at that level that's changed. And
but the operating system did not change. That's
okay. Well,
it's on the same operating system. I tested that because I have it latest, and I put 20.04 and I got the same errors.
Okay, and if you install 6.2 or something, it's the same.
I don't know. We'll have to look. I have not tried that. I have not tried that.
I mean, it seems like a very high-level message. Cannot allocate memory in static. Because clearly GMT runs fine on the command line. So this is about how Julia connects in.
It's when it it's it's when it tries to load the shared library.
Yeah.
Like we have
other. Python is not opening the shared library. I think they're calling.
Yeah, they have to. That's what. No, they also have to load the library.
I don't know. How does that work?
They don't
load in the shared library, or.
I'd have to check the details. We use C types to access it. I'm not sure exactly how that works.
So you are accessing it. Yeah, right. That's the question.
Of course, they are accessing, but how they open might be different or not.
Yeah.
Well, we only also run the dev tests. I think that there's a cron job for it, and it's maybe weekly. So I'm not sure if we know yet. I could run it locally to see if it's still working or not.
I think it was 2 days ago or something like that. And then I tried again yesterday. I've been having the master's presentation this week. I think it was 2 days ago. And I run the test almost daily.
Yeah.
So we must have, if it is something from GMT, it was something 2 or 3 days ago, not more.
Oh, yeah. I think nothing would, I mean.
Okay. And the other thing, to make it quick, I did a quick. Well, remember I asked you about the bundles. I'm talking about the bundles because I'm starting to have recursive questions with guys with troubles in Julia that install the bundle and then it does not work. That's some story. That's becoming more annoying because, okay, it's more convenient to the Mac people just to drag that thing, but then it does not work.
Yeah.
And the number of cases is starting to grow. Either I must make a page somewhere describing and always pointing to them. But I made a bundle, not with the script that you pointed me, but just with the CMake, the -G something. And that bundle, I think I isolated well all the rest, and it did not have that problem. So that problem of the problem, okay, the quick thing. The problem here is that Xcode or CMake or Apple, I don't know which one of them, puts that R path, those relative path in the accesses, and then the externals cannot find the libraries. They say they cannot load it.
Yeah, and, this is a problem, not even just for the externals.
Yeah, the problem
now, right?
is
our CI is breaking because of the RPath stuff with.
Yes. The problem is exactly the same for Julia, Pi, GMT, or GMT Max. It's exactly the same situation. Thing is, start to have more. And the one I did quickly, I think it. Well, I tried in the old Mac, and I think I managed to isolate the other GMT that I have, and it did not. In Julia, it worked. So it did not have that problem. But I did not use the script. It means that the My Bundle did not install the Go script. It did not install anything else. Just GMT and well, it was the Tsunami modeling code that I wanted to include there. But okay, I managed to patch the make file. Sure. And apparently they tried with Julia, and apparently, well, it worked. No, it's not apparently, it worked. What I cannot be 100% sure is if he still managed to find the other one somewhere.
Right. So, I mean, you know the problem here. So we did this bundle, and we had to add all these other libraries and executables so that GMT could work for people who have no repo, right? But before this, I used CMake -G bundle and that stuff, and it works fine. But it doesn't have GoScript and MMPeg and all that stuff. We could make a GMT Lite bundle for people who need to use it from Python and Julia if that solved the problems, right? But then you would have to have these other libraries separately.
Do we have any statistics for how many people use the bundles versus the package managers? It's definitely kind of I mean, there's so many manual steps in our release process that it's quite arduous. So if we could cut that down, that might be nice.
I know that
is a headache.
Several people. But I mean, there is a lead here, a tip here that if you can confirm that doing the quick way without the other dependencies generates a shared library that we can call from MATLAB, Pi, or Julia, and it does not when you use the script. That would be something more concrete to look for, because up to now we still do not know why it happens or how to avoid it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think Megan, since Python has the same issue, we can make a shallow bundle just with GMT and play with that and experiment and see if it works, because it's probably the same issue that Joachim is running into, right? It's all the path stuff and the dependency, how it finds GMT depends on this thing that depends on this thing that is in the bundle somewhere, and then also other ones.
Yeah.
So we can experiment with this. We can experiment with this, and if we have to have two separate DMG files, one very light for this purpose, we can do that if that's really what's required.
It's not clear to me whether that
or use that
to
help us find finally why the other one breaks. Well, why the other one does that? Why the other one creates a different those internal names of the libraries? Because you are using the same compiler, you use CMake, but apparently one introduces those relative paths that break when used outside from the bundle itself, and while the simple one does not.
Yeah.
Well, I think it does not, but I need to confirm. I would like to confirm that.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the build release script that you're talking about, what it does is to look at all the things that GMT depends on and find all the libraries that these things depend on, so that they all can be put into the bundle, right? But I don't think it's changing.
That is what CMake does, or NCs does. That's that script cannot do it, because it's the same as the Windows installer. The NCs or the CMake or the CPAC, whatever, the CPAC models, and that's the guy who does that dependency fishing
right
till the end. But then you have the FFmpeg and Go script is not a dependency.
I know it's a runtime.
It's being had.
Right?
It's being had by the script, and maybe it's around that happens. The GM.
Well, we could experiment with this, right? I mean, this is easy enough to try to find out when it breaks. If it breaks when we add the runtime dependency, is that causing some trouble with paths or not? Because this is like a black box, how that all works. We had the MATLAB situation, right? I mean, all that nastiness with similar things with finding the right library.
I think it's the same. Probably if we fix it, it would be useful. I think it would be useful by MATLAB directly without those crazy renamings of the libraries. So
I think it's different because they have basically, in essence, they make their own bundle, right? They're just like us. They make a bundle with all their crap, and then we run into this old version.
Yes, it would be different because we have that NetCDF and some other libraries.
Exactly.
Probably they have it updated now, but
okay. So we'll work on that a little bit and try to learn more, understand how that whole thing works, because it will solve maybe at least 2 problems, Julia and Python install stuff. So that's worth doing. Okay, we've been at it for 1 hour and 15 minutes. I think it's time to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Hanukkah, whatever. And thank you all for your efforts in 2021. Recharge batteries and get back to it in 2022. And we're going to work on 6.4 and coastlines and new data sets and all that stuff, and fix those warnings so that we can find the bugs. All right, guys.
Okay. All right.
Thanks again.
Bye.
And we'll see you next year.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas to you, Klaus.
Merry Christmas for you.